Ladies and gentlemen, there is a peculiar irony to the modern man. He is surrounded by miracles, but constantly seeks magic. He turns to powders and pills and promises offered in plastic bottles, fearing, deep within, that the flame of his vigor is flickering out. Yet, what if I told you that the strength he seeks lies not in laboratories, but in the orchards, rivers, and roots of the very earth he treads upon? Permit me today to speak candidly. For too long we have treated matters of bodily vigor, yes, even the vigor of a man's loins, as topics whispered behind closed doors. Yet God, in his infinite creativity, made no mistake when he wove pleasure, potency, and procreation into the very fabric of our humanity. True strength, the kind that endures and inspires, is not a product of man's ingenuity or laboratory invention. It is, rather, a gift rooted in the original design crafted by the Creator. We live in an age where solutions come in bottles, promises come in advertisements, and the soul of man is overlooked in favor of shallow results. But real vitality is not something to be manufactured or hastily patched. It is a state of being that arises when one returns to the harmony for which he was made. The modern world would have you believe that vigor is lost with age, and that the only hope lies in prescriptions and quick fix enhancements. Yet such thinking divorces man from his divine heritage. The strength of a man is more than muscle or performance. It is integrity expressed through every part of his being. The body is not meant to be treated like a broken tool to be hastily repaired. It is a living testimony of divine craftsmanship, and when it is respected, nourished, and understood, it responds with resilience and power. When a man begins to treat his health as a sacred responsibility rather than a vanity project, he begins to walk in real strength. His diet reflects respect. His rest reflects trust. His discipline reflects purpose. God did not design us to fade helplessly into dysfunction. He provided, through creation, the means to remain strong, purposeful, and alive. The answer is not a miracle pill. It is a return to what was always good: real food, pure water, movement, love, truth, and reverence. These things are not sold over the counter. They are chosen daily. And when they are embraced, the body in its God, given brilliance, responds with life, vibrant, masculine, and whole. There is a quiet wisdom in the world God has made, an order, a rhythm, a generosity that often goes unnoticed by the hurried man. When we turn to nature not with greed, but with gratitude, we begin to rediscover that healing is not always high-tech or hidden behind pharmaceutical doors. Beetroot juice, for instance, is not merely a trendy health drink. It is a creation steeped in divine intention, rich in properties that nourish the blood, open the vessels, and energize the body without corrupting it. This is not coincidence. It is providence. To speak of such a drink in modern terms is to speak of nitrates, nitric oxide, circulation, oxygen flow, and these are true and good. But beneath the science is something deeper, the understanding that God's creation holds answers we have forgotten. Natural remedies are not relics of a primitive past. They are revelations of God's continuing care for our bodies. The more we strip the land of its purity and replace it with imitation, the more we find ourselves sick, weary, and dependent on synthetic crutches. It is a mark of pride to dismiss the simple gifts of nature in favor of modern solutions. But humility teaches us to look again. Perhaps it is not the beat alone that restores strength, but the act of aligning ourselves with natural law. Drinking what is pure, eating what is whole, moving as we were made to move. These restore not only the body but the soul. It is not superstition to trust what God has grown, it is wisdom. When a man drinks from nature's cup with understanding, he does more than seek performance. He returns to the rhythm of creation. And in that rhythm he will find not just strength, but peace. To see the body merely as a machine is to miss the wonder of what it truly is. Temple, fearfully and wonderfully made, not for function alone, but for worship, for love, and for communion. When a man regards his body as a mechanical object, he seeks only repairs, quick fixes, and upgrades. But when he sees it as a sacred vessel, every choice becomes an act of reverence. He no longer eats to satisfy cravings, but to honor the life within him. He rests not out of laziness, but because rest was commanded, even by God himself. He moves and labors not for vanity, but because strength is a gift meant to be used, not stored. The modern crisis of male vitality is not just a matter of diet or aging. It is the result of forgetting what the body is for. It was not given to us merely to chase pleasure or build empires. It was given to reflect the image of God, to stand tall in truth, to hold and protect, to love and serve. When this purpose is lost, so too is the body's strength. It weakens not only from disease, but from disconnection, from soul, from purpose, and from God. There is great healing in remembering. When a man begins to see his body as a sacred trust, everything changes. He begins to nourish himself with intention. He walks away from what is artificial, what is toxic, and what is shallow. He embraces simplicity, movement, and truth. And the body responds, not because it has been fixed, but because it has been loved. A machine needs maintenance, yes, but a temple needs reverence. And when the body is treated as such, strength flows not just through the limbs, but from the heart and from heaven. The decline of a man's strength often begins not with age, but with small, quiet compromises. A late-night indulgence here, a skipped walk there, a settling into comfort, into routine, into numbing pleasures that offer ease but steal vitality. Over time, these choices accumulate, not as a sudden collapse, but as a gradual erosion. What was once strong becomes sluggish, what was once sharp becomes dulled, and the man, unaware of the drift, begins to accept weakness as normal. This is not how it was meant to be. God did not design man to live in decline, but to grow in discipline and wisdom. Strength was never intended to be sustained by chaos, laziness, or indulgence. It thrives in order, in intention, in the stewardship of body and soul. The world offers counterfeit pleasures, processed food, sedentary distraction, fleeting lust. These are easy choices, but they cost dearly. They rob energy, blur focus, and silence the inner fire meant to drive a man forward in purpose. But when a man begins to reclaim small disciplines, rising early, moving daily, eating with thought, speaking with truth, he begins to remember who he is. He was not made for mediocrity or slow decay. He was made to stand, to protect, to create, to bless. And this identity is not reclaimed all at once, but in the quiet moments where better choices are made. Weakness, then, is not just a failure of muscle, but a forgetting of mission, and the way back is not complicated. It is a return to the path of honor. When a man recognizes where he has compromised, and with courage chooses again what is right, he will find his strength renewed, not because he chased performance, but because he remembered who he was always meant to be. Desire, especially in the realm of intimacy, has too often been cast as something shameful or dangerous. But desire itself is not evil, it is a divine spark placed within us by God, reflection of longing, of connection, of purpose. The problem lies not in its existence, but in its distortion. When desire is pursued without truth, without love, without covenant, it degrades. But when it is anchored in honor, it becomes sacred, powerful, and life-giving. Many have grown to believe that to be spiritual is to deny the body or suppress its urges. Yet this is not what the Scriptures teach. Our bodies are not enemies of the soul, but instruments of worship. Physical desire, when rightly directed, becomes a way in which love is expressed and unity is deepened. In the context of marriage where commitment, God's pleasure and sacrifice accompanies joy, desire becomes holy. It is not merely for gratification, but for giving, not just for excitement, but for enduring connection. To reject desire altogether is to reject part of the human experience that God called good. But to let desire rule without restraint is equally damaging. The middle path, the sacred path, is one of discipline and delight, of restraint and celebration. It is the path where a man sees his desire not as something to hide, but something to steward. When desire is ruled by truth, a man walks in freedom. His energy is not wasted on fantasy or selfish impulse, but invested in real love, in real relationship. This kind of desire is not weak or fleeting. It is strong, sustaining, and deeply human. It does not lead to shame, but to intimacy. It does not fade with age, but deepens with time, and in this a man becomes not less spiritual, but more whole. Lasting strength is not found in a moment, a product, or a single decision. It is born from a life that is whole, where body, mind, and spirit move in unity. A man may chase quick fixes for his weakness, but if his soul is restless, his habits broken, and his heart untethered from truth, no remedy will truly restore him. Strength that endures must come from alignment, not effort alone. This is where modern solutions often fall short. They address the symptom, but ignore the system. A man may take something to stir his body, but if he remains distant from purpose, poisoned by stress, burdened by shame, or estranged from love, the strength will be brief. The body responds to more than chemistry. It listens to how we live. Sleep, joy, truthfulness, forgiveness, movement, sunlight, worship. These things nourish a man in ways no supplement can match. A man who seeks wholeness begins to live differently. He does not eat just for energy, but for life. He speaks with kindness, chooses peace, guards his mind, and pursues his purpose with clarity. He understands that his body is a reflection of deeper currents. And as his heart heals, as his thoughts purify, as his habits mature, his strength returns, not as a surge, but as a steady flame. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. The world praises intensity, but God honors consistency. Lasting vitality is not loud, it is faithful. It grows in quiet choices and deep roots. It thrives in humility and reverence. When a man lives in harmony with God's design, eating rightly, loving fully, working with joy, and resting without guilt, he becomes strong not just for himself, but for all he is called to lead, serve, and protect. And that strength, because it is whole, will not fail.